Oh, I am now live. Fantastic. We are going to be talking about fatherhood after 40, getting a man's perspective. All right, so yes, we are doing it with Michael Lewis Austin. I see he is locked and loaded and on. So, Michael, I just need you to send me a request to join. There we go. I Hey, I'm seeing some familiar names there. Byron says hello. 45 is hard. He's already chiming in. Okay, well, we're gonna
Oh,
talk
okay.
about it.
It's working.
Michael,
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Good. I'm so happy that you reached out to me. Yeah. Oh, Frank Copa said my curls are popping. Okay.
Nice.
I went swimming today and we just got some condition. We just did a little quick wash and condition. Thanks. Thanks.
Okay.
So I'm glad that you're here on time, Michael. It's good to see your face.
Same here.
Yeah, yeah. I've known Michael for a long time, very long time. We used to work together, and we've gone our separate ways. And hey, high maintenance bum. Thank you, girl. It's I think I have like a filter that is called natural. It's working. um, but yeah, I've known Michael a long time, and he's following along with me. Probably also shocked to see me as a mom. Um, and he's just like, listen, I have some things that I want to share about being a father while older, and I just had to jump on it because we're always talking about the woman's perspective. There's so much pressure about women, having babies after 40 and being mothers after 40, and we're gonna be tired and we're gonna be old and we're gonna be this and we're gonna die, you know. And it's just, but men have their things that they're dealing with too, um, I see that I have a comment here um, from the Erica Denise. She says she's 42 with no kids, real close to giving up on ever being married and having kids, and you give me hope. Yes, yes, don't give up. Don't give up. I was not in my current situation until the age of 44. So I don't know. The one thing to not do is give up. There's too many people on the planet. So anyway, please save this live. I will. This live will be saved. I figured out how to save it and how to edit it so that we can like get rid of all the nonsense chatter and just have the good stuff on there, right? So anyway, I want to give Michael just a chance to like communicate. Like, one, who are you and why do you want to have this conversation?
Well, I'm 51 years old, and
No.
yeah, and and I just was listening and to all your posts and reading them, and everybody is going to get a certain amount of haters, where they have their own strong opinions that are opposite to yours, kind of thing.
Right.
And but I did also see some of the comments were kind of along the lines of like, can you actually have kids later? And like people are genuinely interested, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've had both children young, very young. I had my first son right out of high school at
Oh wow,
19,
that's young.
and yeah, it's very really young. And then another child at the age of 24, and then again at 26.
Okay.
So so kind of spread out, you know. And then I'm a father again. I have a stepson who's 14 now, who I've been a stepdad since he was around 8 years old.
Wow.
So I feel like huge difference between how I feel as a father. Like I would say I feel more balanced, and a lot of
Mm,
it comes from experiences I've had,
yeah.
and even experiences related to just like having a job, becoming a manager somewhere, having to handle employees.
Mm-hmm.
There's certain things that maybe an individual, a guy may or may not be comfortable with, having to come to terms with those things for like everybody's best interest, and then how that can factor into you being a good father.
Wow, that's interesting. It's like just getting out there and getting your feet wet in the world can dictate how well you do at home.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. I had a father just kind of chime in here. I'm assuming Captain Caveman said he's 49 wrestling with a 20-month-old right now because it's bedtime.
That's awesome.
We feel you. We feel you. But you know what? You'd still be wrestling with him even if you were 19 or 20.
Absolutely.
That wrestling match is going to happen.
Right.
You're probably more mentally balanced for it. So, okay, good. So, what do you feel was like the biggest challenge of being a dad while young? Like the 19-year-old father, like that's not like that's super young. But how
Yeah.
about in your 20s, you've lived a little bit, but there's still challenges, right?
Yeah, I think where it comes down to is I don't feel like personally, and this is just me, but I also have had this conversation with a lot of other guys that have gone through similar experiences. I think you just don't know who you are 100% until you hit your 30s. That's just my opinion. The
Mm-hmm.
average person, like, there's two ways you can go, or from my experience, I was kind of prepped for in high school. You can either go the vocational route, which, depending on what vocation you're going into, you're looking at something that you can get done under 2 years, sometimes 10 months, and
Mm-hmm.
get a certificate and become a tradesman, right? Or you can go the college prep route. And the way I grew up, a lot of focus was on, oh, you got to go to college, you got to get a degree. And when you think about a degree, you've got a bachelor's degree, that's 6 years. So
Yeah.
if you're doing it full time, you're 23 when you graduate, and now you're in the job market, or
Right.
your supposedly real life job market, right? You're not just working at Starbucks anymore. Not to say that people can't work at Starbucks, but
Not in
and
pay
then
for a family, they
well,
can't.
well, right,
Yeah.
and so it's usually between the age of 23 and 26. If you're 26, if you're doing college kind of on a part-time basis, that you get through. So if you have a kid when you're 24 or 25, or even 26, you just graduated
Mm-hmm.
college. Or if you went to the vocational route, maybe now you're finally just starting to make some money. I feel like that's the kind of like the economics of it, where it's like, are you ready financially as a man to support a family, working at McDonald's, or, I mean, maybe at first, but
Mm-hmm.
as your child grows older, your son's going to want to play baseball or take guitar lessons or jujitsu. Your daughter might want to do the same thing, or
Right.
horseback riding, and if we all as parents want to make things available to our kids, so I don't think that's easy when you're younger financially. And then the only other thing, well, I guess you kind of lack experience. I still feel like if you're in your mid 20s, there's also, not to throw shade on guys being one, but we're kind of like big balls of testosterone, and
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of us are like, oh my God, that girl's hot. We don't think about, is she the partner for the rest of my life? Am I going to be able to raise a child with this person? We're like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
she looks like Angelina Jolie, or whoever, and she winked at me at this concert I went to, and you know, uh, it's more physical. It can be more physical, unless you've got the perfect storm and your parents were super amazing, and you're cut above the rest in maturity levels. But me included, most guys, you're just like, you you can get yourself into trouble,
Mm-hmm.
and not know how to pick a person that's good for you based off of
Mm.
the experience you don't have yet.
I see. So thinking with the other head can lead you into
Yeah.
a whole life path
Right.
because it was that hot girl and you bagged her and now you're a father,
Right.
basically.
Right. right,
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like having some time to grow past that
right,
is kind of what you're saying.
exactly.
Is yeah. We have some comments rolling through here. So um DJ Helen of Troy says, I'm 40 and my partner is 44. We have a 10-month-old and he's struggling. He has older kids. What's the struggle about? Like, is he just tired? Is he out of shape? Or is he financially struggling? Like, what's the struggle? Because my fiance as well, he's how old is he now? 46. I'm 48. He actually is a little bit younger. And we're doing just fine, right? Um, and our baby is now 15 months old. So what get let's get specific because now we have a man here on the line that and maybe he can help you. Cap Caveman said, I had my first when I turned 41, made the best decision to wait. I'm more financially stable. I'm emotionally mature. My relationship is stable. I'm a better dad. Wow. Thanks for sharing that because a lot of people like have this concern. I've heard of men like being concerned would they be too old. Um, oh, and I love this perspective. So Michael, listen, Cap Caveman says, because I understand some of their challenging behaviors are developmental and not their personality,
Right,
which I think that's an excellent point because to Michael's point, when you're young and you're going the vocational school route or you just graduated college and you barely have any money, and then you're dealing with raising this person who's just going through their developmental stages, like what kind of stress is that for a man to come home to? And is he going to be stable or is the next Angelina Jolie going to catch his eye and keep
right,
him out at night?
right,
You know?
right, right.
So that's interesting. So Michael, what do you think, like what are your thoughts on like the role society plays on influencing men, to get into family situations? Like what do you think society feels men should be doing?
Well, I this this is like a loaded topic. I would break this down into different parts, right? Like obviously you've got like the traditional viewpoint of, and I'm sure you're running into this, due to the entire title of your channel. You've got the traditional viewpoint of you need to have children before it's too late, right? Before you get too old, right? Whatever that means. And
Right.
but at the same time, you're challenged again with, it's not inexpensive to have a family. And everybody, I'm sure, whether you're middle class or, upper middle class or whatever, can see, things get more and more expensive every day, housing prices and all that stuff.
Dude, we just
Apartment.
paid $9 for a bag of avocados at Costco.
Yeah, I know, right? So that's the thing. And so just the economics of it alone, right? Finances, cost of education, daycare, all this stuff, right? Um, the financial environment for younger men, I think, is overwhelming, and
Mm,
and I think what happens sometimes, again, if you were unlucky or unknowledgeable, and you and another person come together and have a child,
yeah.
you're at this point, sometimes because of finances, people stay together even though they're maybe not right for each other, right?
Mm,
and
mm-hmm.
and the kind of effects that can sometimes have on the child, unless you're like super like cool about it and you have the ability or a way to make things work, um it's definitely not easy. And like
Yeah.
I know, for example, like I'm going back in time a little bit to answer your
Sure.
question better. My father was 25 when he had me, and
Okay.
that was kind of like the expected age back then,
Mm-hmm.
right? And him and my mother got married when they were like 23 or 24. They waited a couple of years. My dad worked at a factory working on like nuclear submarines or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was up at 4 a.m. every morning, didn't get home till 6 p.m.
Wow.
He worked in a literal welding machinist factory, so he was like covered in dirt, and it was like 6 days a week.
Wow.
and he was not a happy person. He was like
Yeah.
angry all the time. He was always yelling. And I don't think it was until my brother and I hit our teens where we were a little bit easier to kind of like handle because, you know, and he could give us chores to do, be like, Mike, go mow the backyard, Chris, shovel the
You take a
driveway,
little
whatever.
weight off his
Yeah, you
shoulders
know,
finally. Yeah.
um, you know, the next thing you know, he's chilling out, right? But you could also tell, like even with my parents, like my mom and my dad were like the result of, hey, you gotta have kids young before it's too late. Find somebody now, and maybe a little bit of the Angelina Jolie thing because my mom was a beautiful woman,
Mm.
and you know they weren't they my brother and I were even like, why are they married? Like they're totally two completely different people. They
Wow.
argued a lot, you know. So and it even the effect it had on me as a parent later is my dad was so angry so much that I went to the complete opposite end of the spectrum incorrectly, and I was too lenient with my kids.
Oh,
I was
okay.
like, I didn't want to upset them. I didn't want to yell at them. I didn't want to scold them. I just stayed away from it. And what ended up happening is they started to kind of like not listen to me, you know,
Mm.
and they
You became like
started,
a pushover to them.
right. And
Yeah.
they, and so I had to like call up their grandmother or something like that to get them over to the house to like calm them down because they would listen to grandma and grandpa, but they wouldn't listen to me or their
They would
mom, you
listen
know?
to the older.
Yeah, they would listen to the older people, and I think there's something there. There's like a vibe. There's like a competence and a confidence that comes out from people that have experienced things and they know it. And so when you're younger and you're like, oh, I don't know what to do, and like, and the other thing that can happen if you have them with a mentality that's younger and younger emotionally is I think you know you'll turn to some people that are older than you for advice, your parents, and sometimes you have the kind of parents that like the advice all of a sudden crosses over the threshold of just some advice to now they're taking control and it feels like they're meddling, right?
Yeah.
And then
Mm-hmm.
your kids can pick up on that too.
Mm-hmm. So, man, you've covered like a lot of ground here, and this is like very interesting. So, when I look at it, one of just the very basic things is a man could potentially need some space to grow, to work in his career, to have the mental and physical bandwidth to come home and even deal with children.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
there's a big, I mean, whether you're a guy or a girl, there's a big difference between 18 and 23. There's a big difference between 23 and 29. There's
Yep.
like, you know, and between 18 and 29, there's like a whole world of difference, right? How many times did you try something and fail at it and then get over your own stuff
Mm-hmm.
and then have to rise back up to a different challenge or the same challenge and just keep going and surviving? And how much stronger and how much more experience does that make a person? So if you've got somebody that's having a kid when they're like 24 or 25, right? If they're not, if they haven't lived their life in a certain way where they've matured mentally and emotionally to be able to handle anything that life can throw at them,
Mm-hmm.
why would they even want to be a parent yet?
Right.
I just
Well,
don't think they're
I think
equipped.
it's for the arbitrary societal reasons that, oh, you're getting older, and so you
Right,
have to hurry up and do it. Like there's some biological clock that's gonna explode, you know.
right,
And I'm very careful because I know I had my baby pretty late. Like, to be having your first child at my age, like, I never advise any woman to purposely wait until 46 to conceive, which I did not do. My
right.
conception was a surprise.
Okay.
I never advise that. But there is something to be said about the maturity that you gain. And if I had have been in a correct relationship somewhere around 35, it wasn't until around 35, looking back, that I was even qualified to be a good
Right.
mother. I was, gradiently, like physically, I was always qualified to be a mother, but the gradient improvements that I've made in time and the gradient stabilities that I've given myself, I mean, you know, when you're coming up through the world and you're even learning how to use credit cards for the first time, and
Right. Yeah.
you make your credit mistakes, and then you're getting these threatening phone calls. I mean, I used to get anxiety. I used to break out in hives
Right.
because I would be just, I didn't know. I couldn't
Right.
deal with anything. But then you add, and that, but that is almost like in a woman, maybe a bit more forgivable.
Okay.
But in a man, this waffling, these anxieties, these fears, which can oftentimes manifest as anger,
Right.
like with your dad,
Mm-hmm.
can be detrimental
Yeah.
in the parenting
Yeah.
process. Yeah. Um, so, yeah, I don't know, what, because men don't have the same biological clock that women do,
Sure.
why the big rush, maybe if you met your high school sweetheart, and we actually have a couple of friends in common that have successfully done it young, but they were very mature people.
Absolutely.
They come from
Absolutely.
very stable households,
Yeah. Well,
right?
and that actually ties back into the, the environment, because, you know, when you have, you know, um, like a social thing set up where, you know, they like you can get more assistance as a single parent than you can if you have a
That's right.
relationship.
Yeah, if you
Yeah.
get married and have that, like,
Yeah.
you no longer need assistance.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
And so there's all these, like, and I get it, like it all probably at some point originally comes from a place of help
Yeah.
and try and help people that are that way, but there could be a little bit more balance, and I think it can be reworked. So because there's couples that need help, you know what I mean, and
Mm.
there's that. I mean, this just kind of like popped in my head. It's like, think about like how even things are structured. Like, again, going back to finances, it costs you more to insure your car when you're in your 20s than it does in your 30s and 40s, because even the insurance companies are like, those crazy 20-year-olds, they're going to crash their car every weekend, and they don't trust you. You haven't earned the car insurance company's trust yet,
Right.
so
Yeah.
but it's okay to have a kid. It's
That's
like,
such a
what's
good
you know
analogy. It's like even the car insurance companies don't trust you
you know
until age 25.
Yeah, and what's more important, like the trust of a child or your car insurance company? I mean, I know you need it, right? But it's like,
Yeah.
in order of like priorities,
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So now I want to kind of branch over into something that's very interesting, because I think that there's a lot of women out there who have had their first or second child, even younger, in a previous relationship, and now they're single and they're in their 30s or pushing 40s and uncertain about the dating landscape, uncertain if a man would be interested in taking on that kind of responsibility. And then here you are, you're a stepdad now. You married a single
I
mom.
did.
So let's talk about that, like being out in the dating world and single women, and just that whole thing. Let's talk about it.
Okay. Well, I think there's a few different reasons why somebody would be totally cool with dating a single mom. The first one is they're a single parent themselves. That's pretty easy, right?
Mm-hmm.
The guy has kids. I have children from a previous relationship, and there are times when you go out on dates, and as soon as they're like, "Oh, blah blah blah," and you're like, "Oh, I'm divorced," and usually that's the first hiccup, if it is a hiccup,
Mm-hmm.
and then the second one is usually like, "Oh, and I have kids." And there are women out there that who haven't had children yet that don't want that, right? They want to
Mm,
start from scratch, and that's totally fine.
yeah.
But there's a lot of men out there that are single dads that's not an issue for them. The other thing I've come across with some friends of mine is their when they were little kids, their mother was a single mom for a little bit. And then a man came into their mom's life, became their stepdad. They had a really good experience from it.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they went out into their life, they didn't even think twice. One of them ended up marrying a woman that was a single
Mhm.
mom, and he thought it was like awesome. Like he was like, it's not the only reason he married
Yeah.
her, but obviously everything else was right. But it was kind of like he felt like he was paying it forward. He
Oh
was like,
wow.
well, my stepdad stepped in, now I'm gonna do it. And
Oh,
then and then the last thing I would say is I
I just have to say though that that's really sweet to even imagine. And I want to
yeah,
point that up because
sure,
I know my followers and they need to understand this, that there will be men that would gladly step into the fatherhood role.
absolutely,
Like
absolutely,
they would consider it their privilege. It's
right,
not a burden to overcome with certain
right,
type of men. It is actually something
right,
that they would gratefully and willingly do.
right,
Wow.
right. And then lastly, I would say there, you've got guys that they're so stable mentally and emotionally, security wise, financially, usually older guys, and they it doesn't matter, and
Mhm.
sometimes it's even an enhancement. Like if you meet a woman that you really adore and you notice that she's great with her kids, well, cool, trial runs out of the way. She's gonna be great with your kid. You know,
Oh.
you know what I mean? It's like these kids are awesome. Of course I'm gonna have, if that's on the table, of course I'm
Yeah.
gonna have a child with you. Like we have a mutual friend, that, sort of did that, and he's doing great, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I love talking to men because I swear women we're never thinking what men are thinking. You're like, you single mom with that one kid, we know you got the trial run out the way.
Yeah.
We are
Yeah.
judging you, your motherhood capabilities. Like I like you and now I can see if you're actually qualified to become a mother for me, with
Right.
my children by
Right.
watching how she's raising hers.
Right.
Now, I mean, now I'm not a single mom, so this isn't anything that I've had to really sit and talk about or
Sure.
contemplate. But I bet you many women are not thinking that.
No, no, probably not. No.
Yeah, yeah, that's actually being watched at as a judgment criteria. So, what attracted you to your wife? She's a single mom. What was she
Um,
doing right?
well, I think, I got really lucky with my wife because it was very rare. The first time we made eye contact, there was definitely a spark.
Mm-hmm.
And but and this goes into being older and feeling more balanced and competent. And I was at a point in my life. I'm 51 now. This is when I was like in my early 40s,
I'm gonna need you to stop
and
saying that you're 51 because it's I can't believe it. Like you do not look 51.
yeah, I have all my hair. It's so, I don't eat a lot of sugar. I don't do drugs.
Yep.
So I work out. Drink a lot of water. And I have a pretty upbeat attitude. Um, so I would say, you know, based off of what happened to me when I was younger,
Mm-hmm.
and the struggle I felt as being a young father, when I had turned about, like, I think it was like 35-ish or something like that. Um, I was like, okay, I'm doing something wrong here. I need to take a look, and I need to do some deep inner working with myself and some soul searching and some looking at, what I want in life, and what I want from a relationship. And I
Yeah.
was kind of at a point where I'm like, I just want one more relationship, like one more serious relationship. I want to find somebody that I can have a family with, and spend the rest of my life with,
Okay.
right? And so I basically wrote down exactly what I wanted, because at this point in time I knew exactly what I wanted, right?
I did the same thing. I'm
Good,
always
good,
telling these ladies,
good.
you got to write
You
it
have
down and in
to.
detail.
You have to write it
Yeah,
down. Anyway, so
yeah,
so
yeah, yeah. I recognized him as soon as he showed up. I recognized
good,
him.
good. So
Yep.
so so when I say sparks flew, I feel like that's what happened with me, right?
Yeah.
And but even still, again, based off of being older and more mature in so many ways, I waited. I
Mm-hmm.
waited. I got to know her. We became friends. Uh, we knew each other for something like a couple of years. And
Wow.
then finally, one weekend when I was like, I think I like this person, I approached her and we started talking, and then we started dating.
Yeah.
And then even still, I was also very responsible about it because like, you know, it wasn't like I was like, hey, let's date. And then I'm like hanging out at her house with her kid and everything. It's like I'm going slow. I'm
Mm,
making sure we like each other. I'm making sure there's certain things that are happening with us because I also don't want to negatively affect the child, if it doesn't work out.
mhm,
Right. So when I started to feel and she started to feel that this was a good fit and we decided to get serious, I started doing things with her and my stepson. Go to the
mm.
movies, go to the park, play basketball,
And he
all
was
sorts of
how
stuff with
old
him.
at the time?
Like 8 years old. Yep,
Okay.
7 or 8 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah. And super awesome kid, very, very respectful. I got really lucky. He's really easy to like if you ask him, hey, would you do me a favor and mow the lawn today? He'll go mow the entire lawn perfectly, then go back to whatever, and he's a good kid.
Wow. So
And,
she's a good mom.
oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And and you know what I would like to like kind of like also say, right, is I think um depending on the type of person you are, I was an overly nice person when I
Okay.
was younger with my kids, right? And what I've learned to become over the years from all my experiences is and this is something I want to say to women in particular, is like, you're not looking for a nice guy, you're looking for a kind man. And there's
Mm,
a difference between being a nice guy and a kind man. A nice guy is someone that's doing things and making it okay and easy because he's afraid of upsetting somebody or he's afraid of doing something wrong. So that's the nice guy, right? And the reason women don't like that guy and he goes into the friend zone is because they can tell he's not the kind man. And a kind person or a kind man is somebody that is willing to discipline, is willing to disagree, is willing to do whatever it takes for the family because he cares about them, because it's coming from a place of caring and responsibility, right? And the kids might not always like the kind guy because he's going to be like, don't talk to your mom like that. Go to your room,
mhm.
pick up your room. I asked you 3 times nicely to mow the lawn. Now go mow the lawn or you're grounded, right? Like,
Yeah.
he's okay with the kid being temporarily upset with him or disagreeable with him because he knows it's what's best for the child and how they develop. So you want a
Wow.
kind man, not a nice guy, right? And
Mm,
so I think that's important. And there's a lot of, and what you'll also find, in my opinion, is it's the kind man that's more willing to date the single mom than the nice guy.
mm, mm. Now, why is that?
Because he's not trying to cover up his fears. He's not trying to cover up his insecurities. He's balanced, he's stable, he knows what he wants. He knows he wants you.
And Mr. Nice Guy is just, he's being nice to kind of ward off any
Yeah,
criticisms.
exactly. Doesn't want any
Mm-hmm.
confrontation with you or the kids. He just wants everything to go smooth.
That's
And
actually
and yeah,
dishonest.
yeah,
He's
exactly.
not being nice because that's who he is. It's actually, it's a
Right,
front.
right. It is.
Okay.
Right,
Okay, so we got that. We
right.
want the kind man.
Yes,
And that's the one that is actually willing to do the things that is most survival for his
right.
family. Hmm. Wow. So how are you different now? So you started fathering your
Yeah.
stepson in your 40s.
Hmm.
So how is that different now compared to raising your biological children in your 20s?
Well, I kind of said
And
this
I
earlier.
get not to say that your biological children are gone.
Oh, no, 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 no.
How
Yeah.
is fatherhood
No,
different?
I
Yeah.
no, I talk to my youngest daughter like every day. She's a musician too, so we're always like talking music and stuff like that and that kind of thing. Uh, I mean, she can even tell the difference between me younger and me now.
Oh,
She's
what
like
has
pretty,
she
she's,
said?
oh,
What does she?
absolutely.
So, what does your own child say about your parenting?
She just notices that I'm just very understanding and I don't judge her. And a lot of it comes through because I've made a lot of the same mistakes, and I've been there, and I can definitely see how, like, she always wants to talk to me when she's having issues, and
Mm-hmm.
and just and she knows sometimes I just listen. Like sometimes, like when I think when you're more mature and you've been through a lot of stuff, you start to realize sometimes people just want you to listen to them. They don't want you to give them advice back,
Yeah.
right? So I just listen to her and I acknowledge her and I go, "Okay, sweetie, I love you. Is there, what else can we do?" And if she's having a
Yeah.
tough time or something like
Because
that, and
it's that life experience that you lived it and you came through it, and you
right,
don't expect her to not have life experience too. You
right,
don't judge her for it.
right,
Whereas when you're younger, everything is like a reflection. It has something to do with you, right? Like you feel like you're kind of internalizing it, but now as an older parent, you're able to take an exterior look and just say, "My kid is just living."
right,
It's almost like that the other guy who commented earlier, um, talking about having basically more patience and understanding of what his children are presenting to him, even though it sounds like he was dealing with like more like a toddler.
right.
It's a developmental thing, not a personality trait. So you
Well,
can
right.
recognize your daughter's development in life, like she's
Yeah,
navigating it.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
that's
Yeah, and I would just say, like, harkening back to what I was talking about with my dad being really angry and me totally backing off and being too lenient. I feel like I'm more balanced. I
mm-hmm.
feel like there's times when, you know, maybe, my son does something, and I'm kind of like, I could discipline this, but is it that really big of a deal? And
Mm-hmm.
then there's other times where I'm like, oh, I need to discipline this, you know? And
Yeah.
and what I find is interesting is, like, I can actually, like, I don't have to feel like I'm rushed to do it right away either. Like, I've noticed, like, being
Mm-hmm.
older, I can actually think about it. Like, I can go take a walk. What do I want to do? What would be the best thing? I look at a couple of different scenarios, and then if it's something I need to talk to my wife about, I'll talk to her about it too, get her opinion or her viewpoint on it.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more communication going around in this family than and it's good communication. It's like with the intention and the effort to make sure everybody's feeling heard and treated well to all of our best abilities, while still, like, if some type of reprimanding needs to be done, then it's done,
Right.
and then after the reprimanding's done, we always talk to each other and
Mm-hmm.
ask, like, my son, like, do you understand why? And now that everything's calmed down, because when you're a teenager and your video games get taken away, you go volcanic, and you're pissed, and like, hey, he's probably like, I hate my, or whatever, and but he's fine afterwards because we talk about it, and
Right.
like, do you understand why we did this? And he's like, yeah, I know. And
Yeah,
yeah, so
I like that though. That's really cool that the increased thoughtfulness in how you discipline and not feeling like you have to rush head on to doing something irresponsible and drastic in your disciplining.
right.
That's quite something. Um, Now earlier we had a guy talking about like he's wrestling with his 20-month-old to get him to bed and stuff, and I find it interesting. Like you were commenting, you and I were very similar in this regard, you know, no no drugs, taking your supplements, taking good care of yourself. So what do you feel you are doing for yourself to make yourself a better dad at this stage of the game? 51.
Well, I think I am lucky in that my favorite thing in the world to do, I do for a living. So I'm a musician and a guitar player, and I
Yeah.
teach guitar lessons, and I perform. I've been performing pretty much my whole adult life, and currently I live in the Salt Lake City Valley area, and I perform like 3 times a week.
Nice.
I host an open mic for singer-songwriters every Tuesday. Uh, I I not like for money or anything, but I get a lot of artists that like talk to me, and I just kind of help them out, and kind of maybe like coach them a little bit, and I'm very active in my local music artist community,
Mm-hmm.
and it's something I love doing, so it doesn't feel like work to me. And so if you can do that, great. Otherwise, I feel like there's something everybody can find to sort of live for, right?
Right.
Something that makes them happy. Sometimes it's just your family. Like, you got people out there that they're like, man, I love being like a part of this family,
Yeah.
and that's awesome too. I love my family, right? My wife's very supportive of me being a musician, um, and we have like a drum set in the house, a bunch of stuff. Sometimes we have family jam sessions, you know, and we're just having fun. Um,
Michael, hold on.
yes.
I made a mistake. I started this live without my water.
Oh, gotcha.
Hold on.
Okay, I'm gonna hang tight.
Okay.
Um,
Sorry
and
about
then,
that.
oh, you're fine. The other thing I would say is, staying active, taking walks, taking care of yourself, um, so you're moving, and
Yeah.
and then be to I don't know, I just really try to take care of myself, get enough sleep. uh I schedule me time, which is
Mm.
really easy for me. I have a completely different work schedule than my wife. I get up every morning and make her coffee and cook my son breakfast, and then they go off. She drops them off at school, she goes to work, and then I do some like household chores. The, I try to keep, like, I have like a good portion of the house that I try to keep clean, because my wife works a lot too.
Mm-hmm.
So I know she doesn't like coming home and seeing a messy kitchen or living room. So I just make sure all the dishes are washed and the floors are vacuumed and everything looks
That's some
nice
real
before she
grown
gets
man
home.
stuff right
It's
there.
really grown man stuff.
That's some
And
real grown man stuff right there. Like,
yeah,
baby, I got you.
yeah. Well, the thing is it's like, you
Jamie
know,
says, Jamie says, hey, Jamie. She says, thank you for doing
oh,
that. Good man.
yeah.
Jamie, that's a Cara Fane's sister.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, it's like, it's not like I was always like that, but my this summer I just had kind of like was like kind of these thoughts, like, wow, she works just as much as me, if sometimes not more. How is she, keeping up, all the time?
Yeah.
And she was gone for a little bit this summer with some work related stuff. And I was like, how did my house go from being like super neat to like a bachelor pad in like a week? And and a lot of people like my wife are really good as like cleaning up as you go, right? And
Yeah.
I used to not be that guy, and so when I realized how much she was doing, I was like, oh man, I am so have to turn this around. And so when she got back, she came home to like a beautifully spotless clean house.
Mm-hmm.
I cleaned it really nice. I deep cleaned it, basically like spring cleaning, but in the summertime. And I just took over the 2 rooms in the house that she doesn't necessarily like to do. And I've been doing it for 2 or 3 months now, and she's so happy. Like, literally every day she goes, oh my god, it was so good to come home today and and not have to wash any dishes and see that the sink's scrubbed down and clean and the dishwasher's running and everything smells nice, and you know,
Michael,
and
duplicate
and
yourself.
and
Women
and
across America
and
be like,
and
wait a minute.
she was even like, well, here's the thing, right? You know, and I don't know if this is an actual fact, but you know, you hear that it takes 21 days to create a good habit, right? So I was like, all right, I'm gonna try to do this for like 21 days, right? And I passed the 21 days mark, and now it's a habit. And now it's
Oh,
literally like, and you know, it's not like I don't like it. You know, I'm not like, oh man, this is so awesome to be doing this. You know, but my wife does. You know,
and you,
and that's what's important is the effect I create on my wife every time she comes home and doesn't have to wash the dishes or clean the living room because you know there's a 51-year-old man's and a 14-year-old boy's socks laying on the couch. You know when she comes home to this nice place, and it doesn't actually take me that long. And what I've done is, as soon as they're out the door, I wash my son's dishes. I wash her coffee cup. I wash any dishes from dinner the night before. I wipe down the counters. I vacuum the floors. Boom, it's done. So I make myself do it because I don't have to be to work until I don't have to hit the road until like noon or 1 o'clock. And
okay,
at that point, it's like 8 in the morning.
yeah,
What I used to do
okay. So
is
there's almost no excuse for it. I mean, I guess
there's no excuse.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And what I used to do is I used to go, well, I'll do it right before I go to work, right?
Oh,
And and uh, and what used to happen is I would make them coffee, make them breakfast. They'd leave. I go with my coffee into the living room, watch some YouTube videos on guitar stuff, fall asleep on the couch, wake up a couple hours later, play my guitar, do whatever, and then all of a sudden I look at the clock and be like, "Oh my God, I have to go," and I leave these messes.
mm-hmm.
And I used to think if I texted her, "Hey, I'm really sorry, I didn't get to finish blah 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 today," that was me being courteous. Well, I was wrong. So, so it just made
Actions speak louder than text
yes,
messages.
they do. So I was just finally got to a point where I was like, um, I also was looking at it from a point is my son's 14 and I need to lead by example. And I don't want him to see his mom arguing with me because I can't figure my day out to help out. And so I was like, okay, I have to set a good example for this kid. You know, he sees me most. He's with us during the school year, and he's with his dad the summers and on vacation. So I'm, even though I'm not his like actual dad, I'm here a lot. So he's influenced by how I interact with his mother.
Yeah.
So if she, let's say, has a discussion with me and he's in the house, even though we think he's not listening, he probably is,
Mhm.
you know. And if she's like, hey, I'm upset, the house keeps getting this way, kind of thing, he's going to have this thing in his head. Well, I guess that's how, relationships are. Like,
Mhm.
mom yells at dad and he doesn't pick up after himself. Well, I don't like to pick up after myself. So I just have to deal with some woman yelling at me and I can be lazy and not pick up after myself. So I was like, all right, I need to stop this and change it. And he's at that impressionable teenage age. So
Yeah.
now as soon as he's done eating, I'm like, hey, can I have your plate, buddy? Thanks. Wash it, blah, blah. Sees me do all this stuff. And
But that's brilliant too because you can actually forecast that he could become the type of man that just willingly creates an upset woman and thinks that that's okay.
right,
Yeah,
right,
like it's okay to just willingly cause a woman to be yelling about something because that's what I saw and I guess that's how it is.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's maturity for sure. So now looking at, I started to ask you earlier and we kind of started talking about your daughter too, just the comparisons about the type of father you were younger versus now, right? And so I get that you were pushover dad when you were younger.
Yeah.
What else were you when you were younger? Probably broke dad.
Oh God. Well, I think what it is too is like you can be very like you can almost kind of like walk around with horse blinders. You can be like tunnel vision. For me, and I'm sure a lot of guys can relate to this in whatever they're interested in, whether it's being an athlete or a lawyer or whatever, right? Um, for me, it was like, I'm going to be a famous musician, right? And so, you know, even though I had the decency and the responsibility level to be like, all right, looks like that's not happening anytime soon, because now I have 3 children and I'm 25 years old, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up getting like a job at a casino and becoming a security guard so I could get benefits and all this stuff. But there's this thing, right? If you don't know how to handle it, and you usually don't when you're younger, you're not equipped for it mentally or emotionally, that you just have this gnawing regret, right?
Mm-hmm.
And especially if you didn't pick somebody or didn't co-pick somebody where you both are good for each other, it really, like, I'm a big person on vibes, right? And how, everybody's walking around and they're giving off vibes, right?
Yeah.
And different types and different levels, different emotions, all that stuff, right? So if you're around your children and you've got this gnawing regret at you, your relationship's not working, you're tired, you're working graveyard shift at a casino 7 days a week, and they want you to play with them and go to the park, um, even if you put on your best game face,
Yeah.
it's affecting them in a way that you won't realize until years to come. It'll make them be okay with being okay with things, if you know what
Mm.
I mean.
Yep. Yeah.
Right?
Settling for
Yeah,
mediocrity.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the way it is. Look what Dad did. I guess I'll be okay with this.
Yeah. Just the whole life of self-sacrifice. So Mike, the security guard in a casino, instead of actually
Yeah,
pursuing his dream.
yeah,
So I get it now. Like, because when I asked you, like, what are the things that you're doing for yourself, because you're physically fit, you look well, but one of the main things is you actually have something that fulfills you. You're
right,
not in sacrifice
right,
to fatherhood,
right.
which, and I understand there is a degree of sacrifice probably for any
Sure.
parent,
Yeah,
right? But I think, as society is structured, the men really do carry the burden of the ultimate sacrifices. Like, you don't really hear of stay-at-home
right,
dads. They do happen,
right,
but they're not common, right?
right,
It's more acceptable for the woman to be the stay-at-home woman, and the man has to just go out and sometimes just be doing something totally of disinterest to him.
right,
So I think that that's actually quite cool too, is that you've evolved to a place of stability where part of your success in fatherhood involves the fact that you actually can do things for yourself.
right, right, right. And I think what I would like even more specifically say about it is I found a way, right? Like, I found a way to take the things that I enjoy and I'm passionate about, and I found a way to generate income and prosperity from it, so I could have a family, and be able to have the time to be there as a parent and stuff like that. So I think when you're older, you start to see, based off of all those trials and errors and successes and failures, you start to eventually, if you look for them, collect a list of successful actions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can be like, hey, this worked. Why don't I do this again, right? Like I had a realization, when I used to live in Vegas, that I always had lots of money when I taught lessons out of a music store, right? Because they
Mm-hmm.
get you the students,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
Okay.
then you hold on to the students, and students buy more musical instruments, right? So I ended up getting a job at a music store, right? And I enjoy teaching. It's fun, you know, and I made good money at it. And then I was like, I used to be an original music snob because I started off as a singer songwriter. And
Hmm.
I was like, I'm not going to do cover songs with other people, you know. And I was like that when
Yeah.
I was younger.
Purist.
Yeah, I was a purist. I was like this young 22-year-old guy. I was like, no, punk rock doesn't do cover songs, right? And so, but then I was like, well, you know, this guy wants me to play at this casino for 3 or 4 hours for $400 plus tips. I just got to play somebody else's music, and it's just me, an acoustic guitar, and a harmonica, and I could even do it my own way if I wanted to,
Hmm.
and I can pay my bills. Okay, cool. So I just changed the way I looked at it,
Yeah.
and now I make really good money from it, and I can go buy groceries and pay bills and make a car payment, and when there's an emergency I can fix our car,
Yeah.
like my wife's car had something going on with it, and I had some money put aside from playing music, and I
Yeah.
was able to get it fixed, and so it wasn't even like a second. It wasn't even like a second thought. It was like, oh, okay. Well, let's find a guy you like, have him come to the house because they do that now. Fix the
Yeah.
car. Boom, car's
Yeah.
fixed. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're adulting quite nicely. You're
Right.
adulting quite nicely. Now, I'm curious, do we have any women here who are considering parenthood, considering becoming mothers older? Do we have any single moms here? Do we have any women who are like trying to convince their men to have the baby and the man is like, I don't know, I think we're too old? Like, I'm kind of curious. This is actually my fault because I'm generally more engaged with my audience in this, and so I haven't actually
Oh.
asked anyone like, what are their situations? What are they sitting on? Before we wrap up, we have anybody here that kind of just like wants to chime in on their situations, because there is something to consider about being a parent older, but I think it's really in the realm of physical health and life longevity. But as far as my personal experience is gone, the patience, the wisdom, the understanding, the respect I give my
Mm,
daughter at the age of 15 months, like she gets so much respect.
right.
Like, you know, so, but for many people, it is a question like, should they do it older or not? So I just wanted to make sure that I give anyone who's like popped in here an opportunity to, throw in their 2 cents or questions just about questioning about parenting older. And meanwhile, I do want to let you know that Jamie says you're such a great man. That
Oh.
came in when you were telling about washing dishes.
Oh, thanks, Jamie. It's a small thing to do for somebody that makes a big difference.
Ooh, yeah, 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 definitely. Like for me, it's like take my car for that oil change. I'm like, oh, it's done.
Right. Right.
Thank you.
Right. 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 Right.
But yeah, I mean, I think this is great, and it's important for people to know that parenthood at this age just can look different. Like you don't have to sacrifice and lose yourself in the process, like many people often have to do when they're younger, trying to
Right.
navigate the landscape of things. And like I said, I spent $9 on a bag of avocados today, so that's just telling you
Right.
about the economics of things.
Well, right, and again on that, it's like if you're an older parent and you have a have a good job, and you establish yourself financially. There's a lot of for people in their 40s, that have like condos, and maybe they even have a house or something like that. Uh, it's it, it's more, you just can afford things more. Like you can
Mhm.
afford a babysitter, you can afford daycare,
And you can
you
also
can
figure things out.
yeah,
You just,
you know
even your ability to just figure it out
right, exactly.
without it being.
You're a better problem solver.
Yeah.
It's like what I noticed happened a lot to me when I was even in my mid 20s, was like you'd have that thing where like, man, I really just need a night off, with my child's mom, and we couldn't get a date night because nobody else in the family wanted to babysit for us, and
Mhm.
we couldn't afford a babysitter, and And so it's like, I think when you're more financially stable and mature in so many different ways, you're like, okay, let's get a babysitter. Let's go out. Let's have a glass of wine. Let's see a movie, especially
Mhm.
when they're younger like that, right? You might
Yeah.
not want to bring, a 1 or 2 year old out to see a movie in the movie theater because they, might, they start
Interrupted.
crying. Yeah, interrupt, start
Right.
crying, and so, and you do need time with who you're with, to enjoy each other and remember why you're together in the first place,
Yeah.
and that can, I feel like that can be easily obtained when you have the funds to do that kind of
That's
thing. Yeah.
right. That's right. Well, this has been great, Mr. Michael. I
Awesome.
appreciate you
Yeah.
popping in and just,
Yeah.
giving your male perspective. You really dropped some gems here. Like, I'm gonna have to go back and cut out that segment about dating single mothers. Like,
Oh,
uh,
really? Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that's some perspective because a lot of ladies are out here, losing hope or uncertain about things, and
Yeah, don't
also,
don't don't lose hope. Really don't. It's like there's somebody out there for everybody, and and it really, if probably what's happened is they're either internally thinking this before they're letting things happen, or they've just run into a couple of duds. And when I say that, it just means, like, if the people that you've been interested in aren't interested in you just because you're a single mom, then they're not the right person for you, because
yeah.
they're not the right person for your kid,
Mm,
because you need the right
mm.
person for both.
Well, I'm not even a single mother, so I'm moved by this. I'm just like, I needed to hear this. Wait, I am not a single
Yeah.
mother.
Yeah, no, you do. You need, because you're not thinking about just yourself anymore. You're thinking about your child or your
Right.
children, right? So
Mm,
so and if and hopefully, if there's somebody that happens to be listening and they're not doing that, well, maybe that's the problem.
yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So,
Well, Michael, it's been our hour. I'm gonna be ending off on this live here. I really appreciate you like popping in and giving your male perspective. This has been awesome, and it's good to see your face. You do look
yeah,
really
same
good.
here. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
All
you.
right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're signing off for now.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Good night, Michael.
Good night.